At a crowded auction, a frail horse stood silently, failing to catch anyone's eye, dismissed as worthless. No one paid it any attention, except for a woman with a determined gaze. She saw in the horse something no one else noticed. After bringing it home, what happened next astonished all those who had ignored it. Under the scorching midday sun, the auction was lively. Robust horses from farms across the region were brought in. Buyers dressed formally, wearing wide-brimmed hats and polished leather shoes, strode confidently among the horse pens, scrutinizing each animal. Some jotted notes in their notebooks, while others discussed the horses they intended to bid on. In a quiet, hidden corner, a gaunt horse stood motionless. Its head hung low, its dusty coat revealing protruding ribs. Its frail legs seemed barely strong enough to support its body. People passed by without a glance, some even mocking it, declaring it worthless. One man remarked it should be sent to the slaughterhouse. The horse remained silent, its sunken eyes showing nothing but resignation. Angelina Jolie, a young woman with sharp eyes and unwavering resolve, made her way through the crowd toward the neglected horse. Dressed in a simple t-shirt and light-colored jeans, she carried the hard-earned savings from months of working at her family's farm. Her grandfather's words echoed in her mind. "Never judge a horse by its appearance. Look deeper." As she approached the abandoned horse, she felt an unusual stillness emanating from it. The horse's eyes, filled with sadness and an unspoken yearning, immediately captivated her. Ignoring the mocking laughter around her, Angelina extended her hand toward the horse. After a moment's hesitation, it slowly stepped closer. A gentle yet profound moment that solidified her decision. When the auctioneer introduced the horse with indifference, the crowd paid little attention. But Angelina confidently declared, "I'll take it." Her words resounded like thunder in the silence, leaving everyone stunned. A man scoffed, asking what she planned to do with such a useless horse. Unbothered by the ridicule, Angelina firmly inquired about the price. Surprised by her interest, the auctioneer gave a minimal price. Without hesitation, Angelina paid and led the horse away, naming it Troy. As she left the auction, laughter and skeptical whispers followed her. "She'll regret it." But Angelina didn't look back. Walking beside Troy, she felt the exhaustion shared by both of them. Each step on the dusty path was a struggle for Troy, his legs trembling as if about to collapse. Several times Angelina had to stop to let him rest, gently reassuring him, "Easy there, boy, we're almost home." The road to the farm was quiet, flanked by fields of dry grass stretching endlessly. Despite her fatigue, Angelina felt confident in her choice. She knew she had taken a risk by spending her entire savings on a horse deemed worthless by others, but Troy's eyes convinced her he was worth the gamble. When they arrived at the farm, the sun was setting, casting golden hues over the hills. The small house came into view, alongside a modest horse stable. Her grandfather, Colin, sat on the porch, putting down his tools as he noticed Angelina leading Troy home. "What's with that horse?" he asked, his tone a mix of curiosity and concern. "It's mine," Angelina replied confidently, though she felt a hint of apprehension. Colin approached, studying Troy closely. The horse was nearly emaciated, his coat dull, his legs unsteady. "Looks like he hasn't been fed properly in months," Colin muttered, shaking his head. Angelina pressed her lips together and said determinedly, "I think he can recover, with time, care, and someone who believes in him." Colin crossed his arms, raising an eyebrow. "Time and care? Are you sure? A horse like this needs much more than that." Without hesitation, Angelina responded, "I'm willing to try." Colin remained silent for a moment before sighing and nodding. "If you're certain, go ahead. But he's your responsibility. You'll have to feed him, care for him, and prove he's worth it." Angelina smiled, her eyes shining. "Thank you, Grandpa. I won't let you down." Colin gestured toward the smaller stable. "Take him into that pen for now. We'll figure out the rest tomorrow." Angelina led Troy into the stable, preparing a temporary shelter and untying his rope to give him some freedom. The horse turned to look at her, his dark eyes seeming to grasp what was happening. She placed a bucket of water before him and said, "Here you go, buddy. You deserve this." Troy drank, his tense body beginning to relax. She then brought him some hay, noticing how thin and dusty he was. Yet, despite his frailty, he held his head high, a glimmer of latent strength shining through. When Colin came to check on them later, he found Angelina dozing off by the fence, while Troy stood nearby, his ears turned toward her. Colin smiled and softly murmured, "Maybe you were right about him, kid," before heading back to the house. The first few weeks at the ranch were more challenging than Angelina had anticipated. Troy arrived in poor condition, and every day was a battle to restore his strength and trust. Although he had plenty of food and water, he barely touched them, accustomed to scarcity. Angelina checked the hay, added supplements, and patiently sat beside him, reassuring him, "There's no need to compete anymore. This is your time now." One morning she led Troy to the yard, but as they approached the gate he froze, fear evident in his stance. She murmured, "It's okay," holding the lead without pulling, knowing that forcing him would only make things worse. Colin watched and sighed. "This horse is wounded on the inside. Someone's hurt him." "We'll heal him," Angelina said, her gaze fixed on Troy. She sat near the gate, letting the lead slacken on the ground. Gradually, the tension in Troy eased. The next day they tried again, and step by step, small victories were made on the grassy field. When Troy finally crossed the threshold, Angelina gently stroked him, saying, "I knew you could do it." Troy's physical recovery was equally demanding. He tired quickly during training sessions. Angelina designed a careful regimen, starting with leading him around the stable and progressing to short runs. Some days showed noticeable improvement. Others he seemed worn out. Yet Troy always found the strength to keep going. Colin, initially skeptical, began to get involved. He shared, "Horses need strength in both body and mind. If they trust you, they'll achieve what no one thought possible." One afternoon, while Angelina was working with Troy, Colin approached with an old wooden brush. "Need a hand?" he asked, handing her the brush. Angelina smiled and accepted it. As she gently stroked Troy's back, Colin began brushing his neck with light, careful movements. At first, Troy's muscles tensed under the unfamiliar touch, but he gradually relaxed. "Funny," Colin said after a while. "This horse reminds me of one I had when I was young. Stubborn and wary, but once I earned its trust, there wasn't a more loyal horse in the world." "What happened to it?" Angelina asked curiously. Colin gave a wistful smile. "It became the best horse I ever had because I gave it time. Never rush a horse. They'll teach you patience, and if you listen to them, they'll give back more than you ever imagined." That evening, as Angelina sat by the stable watching Troy, Colin's words echoed in her mind. She knew Troy had something special that no one else had seen. In the months that followed, her care transformed Troy. His once frail body grew strong and muscular. His dark coat regained its glossy sheen. His movements became fluid and confident. But what impressed Angelina most was the change in Troy's eyes. From fear and resignation, they now reflected trust and determination. She knew there were still challenges ahead, but every moment with Troy reinforced her belief that she had made the right choice at the auction. Troy's progress became increasingly evident, and Angelina prepared for the ultimate challenge. One afternoon, as she was leading Troy through the stable, Colin appeared with a rope and an old saddle that had been stored away for years. "It's time for this boy to know what it feels like to carry a rider," he said, his voice a mix of pride and challenge. Angelina glanced at Troy, who stood quietly, his ears twitching as he grazed. Although they had come a long way, riding him would be a delicate test. Any mistake could easily shatter the trust they had built over time. "Do you think he's ready?" Angelina asked, her hand gently stroking Troy's neck, a gesture born of months of care. "We won't know until we try," her grandfather replied, placing the saddle on the fence nearby. "But if anyone can do it, it's you. He trusts you." That night, Angelina stayed up later than usual, thinking about the plans and hopes she had for Troy. From the moment she bought him, she had dreamed of entering him in riding competitions. Not for glory, but to prove that a horse's origin doesn't determine its potential. She understood, however, that the process couldn't be rushed. The next morning, as the sun rose, Angelina led Troy to the yard, the saddle waiting in a corner. She approached the task with the same care that had guided their entire journey. She gave Troy time to sniff and inspect the saddle before gently placing it on his back without fastening it. Troy stiffened, stretching his neck to adjust to the unfamiliar sensation, but Angelina soothed him with soft words, her hand gliding along his flank to help him relax. This gradual process strengthened their bond. Once the saddle was securely fastened, Colin stepped into the yard. "All right, girl. Let's see how he does with you on his back." Angelina nodded but didn't immediately mount. She led Troy around the yard first, allowing him to grow accustomed to the saddle's presence. The horse stumbled a few times, moving awkwardly and uncertainly, but gradually he began to adjust to the weight on his back. Finally, Angelina took a deep breath and said, "All right, boy, let's try." She placed her foot in the stirrup and pulled herself up, settling onto the saddle. Troy stiffened, his muscles tensing, but Angelina remained calm, giving him time to adapt. "Good boy," she said softly, stroking his neck. Troy let out a long sigh and slowly began to move. At first, his steps were hesitant, but the more he walked, the more confident he became. Angelina felt proud and relieved to see that Troy not only tolerated her presence, but also moved naturally under her weight. From his position by the fence, Colin observed with satisfaction, "See? I told you he's not broken. He just needed someone to remind him of what he's capable of." That day marked a turning point for both Troy and Angelina. As Troy became familiar with the saddle, the next challenge was training him for competitions. Angelina understood that show jumping and riding required discipline and precision, but more importantly, an unbreakable bond between the rider and the horse. A few weeks later, Angelina decided to take Troy out of the ranch to a nearby field so he could get used to new terrains and sounds. The first outing was chaotic. The sound of wind rustling through the trees and branches snapping unsettled Troy. At one point, he bolted so fast that Angelina nearly fell off. "It's okay," Angelina said firmly, maintaining her seat on his back. "The rain hasn't fallen, but you're still with me." Despite the setbacks, they persisted. Troy grew increasingly confident, learning to trust not just Angelina but also his own instincts. Their bond deepened and became stronger. Colin, watching from afar, smiled. "The horse isn't just strong," he said to a friend. "He has heart, and it's all thanks to the breakthrough they've made together." One afternoon, as Angelina and Troy practiced basic jumps on a small course, Troy's initial attempts were clumsy, frequently bumping into the rails. However, with patience and consistent training, he gradually synchronized his movements, and eventually, after clearing a jump, Angelina couldn't contain her joy. She hugged Troy's neck and exclaimed, "I knew you could do it." Sitting on the porch under the stars that evening, Angelina dreamed of the future. There was still a long way to go before they could compete in major events, but for the first time since acquiring Troy, she felt he was ready to face the world. The journey hadn't been easy, but they had proven that the past didn't have to define the future. With enough determination and faith, any obstacle could be overcome. Over the following months, Angelina and Troy trained tirelessly, overcoming every challenge. From those first hesitant steps, Troy had progressed to gracefully clearing higher obstacles, showcasing the unique connection between them. However, for Angelina, the true test lay ahead as they entered the competitive world. One morning, while reviewing the competition schedule, Colin approached and asked, "Have you decided yet?" Angelina sighed, glancing at the schedule before replying, "There's an upcoming event in town, but I'm not sure we're ready. There's still so much to do." Colin listened calmly and advised, "Nobody starts perfect. If you keep waiting for the ideal moment, it'll never come. Troy is ready, and so are you. You just need to believe it." Colin's words gave Angelina the courage she needed. She decided to sign up for a small beginners competition. The day of the competition arrived sooner than she had expected. Angelina prepared Troy meticulously, grooming him until his coat shone and adjusting the saddle with care. She gently asked Troy, "Ready, boy? Let's do our best." Troy snorted as if he understood the gravity of the moment. At the arena, Troy became nervous amidst the crowd, unfamiliar sounds and new sights, shaking his head and snorting anxiously. However, Angelina remained composed, her steady hands and soothing voice guiding him. She whispered, "We've got this." When it was their turn, Angelina couldn't ignore the stares from the crowd. Some were curious, others skeptical. A man near the rail muttered, "Sure, he looks polished, but is he any different than before?" Angelina stayed silent, choosing to focus on her trust in Troy rather than responding. When her name was called, a rush of emotion swept over her. She mounted Troy and entered the arena. The course, though straightforward, required precision and trust. Troy started with a trot, transitioning smoothly into a canter. The first obstacle was cleared with ease, and with a powerful leap over the next higher jump, Troy surprised the crowd. Each jump and turn was a testament to their hard work. Though not perfect, the synchronization between Angelina and Troy was undeniable. For Angelina, winning wasn't the only goal. It was about proving what they had achieved together. As they crossed the finish line, the crowd erupted in applause. While not everyone fully grasped their accomplishment, many recognized the dedication and effort they had poured into their journey. After the competition ended, a few competitors came to congratulate Angelina. A young man named Luke looked at Troy with a mix of surprise and admiration and asked, "Is this the horse I saw at the auction a few months ago?" Angelina nodded, smiling as she gently patted Troy's neck. "Yes, his name is Troy, and he's more than anyone ever thought he would be." Luke chuckled lightly, clearly impressed. "You did great. That horse has a spark in his eyes, and so do you." When the results were announced, Angelina didn't expect to win, but to her surprise, she received third place. As she took the medal, a quiet realization came to her. This journey was not just about proving Troy's worth, but also about preserving the bond they had built and the challenges they had overcome. That evening, when they returned to the farm, Grandpa Colin was waiting on the porch, his expression a mixture of pride and tenderness. "I knew you could do it," he said, "but this is just the beginning." Angelina smiled and glanced at Troy. "I know, Grandpa, but I'm ready for whatever comes next, and so is Troy." With their first competition behind them, the road ahead was now clearer, full of new goals and challenges. A wave of emotion swept over Angelina and Troy. Their pride in their achievement remained, but there was also a sense of attention they hadn't anticipated. One morning, while she was feeding Troy in the stable, Colin appeared with a letter in hand. "For you," he said knowingly. Angelina wiped her hands on her apron and opened the envelope. Inside was an invitation to a regional equestrian competition, much more prestigious than the previous event. Along with it was a personal note from the event organizer. "We admire your dedication and the strong bond you share with your horse. We believe Troy has remarkable potential, and we would be honored to have you among the participants." Angelina smiled, though there was a hint of nervousness about facing the strongest competitors. But it was also an opportunity to prove Troy's worth. "What do you think, Grandpa?" she asked. Colin studied the letter carefully and nodded. I think this is the next step for you, but you must be well prepared. The higher you go, the more eyes will be on you. The training intensified, this time with Angelina hiring an experienced trainer to help them refine their technique. Donald, the trainer, was a practical man with a keen eye, and he quickly recognized Troy's uniqueness. This horse has heart, he commented, after watching Troy jump over a hurdle, but it also has a wild spirit, something rare. Make sure he always trusts you. That's what makes him special. The day of the regional event came sooner than Angelina had expected. The venue was grand, with packed stands and riders controlling well-groomed horses. Despite the tense atmosphere, Troy showed remarkable confidence, surpassing his performance in previous competitions. He stood tall, ears forward, ready to respond to every cue from Angelina as they prepared. Angelina noticed a group of men observing them from a distance. At first, she didn't pay attention, but soon realized that one of them was the auctioneer who had sold Troy to her, the man who hadn't wanted him before. That's right, the horse no one wanted, one man said with surprise and admiration. Another responded, but this girl saw what we didn't. Angelina pretended not to hear and focused on her preparation. However, before she entered the arena, one of the men approached. Excuse me, he said calmly but confidently. My name is James. I was at the auction where you bought this horse. I have to admit, I didn't think he would go this far. What you've accomplished is impressive. Angelina nodded briefly, continuing her preparation. James continued, Actually, I'd like to make an offer. I've prepared a large sum of money to buy this horse. What do you think? Angelina lifted her chin and looked him straight in the eye. He's not for sale, she replied. Troy is not just a horse. He's my partner. James smirked as if he hadn't heard her refusal. I can offer you more than all the prizes you've ever won, he said, his tone casual but filled with confidence. Think of what you could do with a new horse, one with a superior pedigree. Angelina tightened Troy's reins, feeling him tense slightly under her touch as if Troy understood the conversation. No matter how much you offer, you can't buy what Troy and I have built together, she responded firmly. Troy will stay with me. James raised an eyebrow, then shrugged nonchalantly. It's up to you, he said, his voice tinged with disdain. But mark my words, a horse like that shouldn't go to waste. He turned and walked away, leaving Angelina with a mix of pride and a touch of anger. She could feel the eyes around her, some in admiration, but many hoping she would fail. Angelina shook off the pressure and focused on the task ahead. When it was their turn, Angelina and Troy entered the arena with unwavering determination. The obstacles were higher, the course more difficult than any challenge they had faced. But she had never stopped believing in Troy. Each jump, each turn, they not only completed but exceeded expectations, leaving the audience in awe. When the competition ended, the applause was deafening, though they finished in second place. For Angelina, the real victory wasn't the silver trophy, but the proof that she and Troy were an inseparable team. That night, as she rode Troy back to the farm, Angelina reflected on everything that had happened. She knew that success would bring both attention and new challenges. But no matter how many offers or criticisms came her way, Troy was not just a horse. He was her companion, her soulmate. Their journey, starting from a personal dream, had now become an extraordinary story. News of the horse who had once been rejected and became a champion spread quickly. Many found their story inspiring, but there were also many skeptics. One afternoon, while Angelina was training, a sleek black car appeared at the farm gate. A tall man in a well-tailored suit stepped out of the car. "Angelina Jolie?" he asked, his tone polite yet confident. Angelina dismounted and walked over, her eyes full of curiosity. "That's me. How can I help you?" "My name is Lucas Brown," the man replied, pulling a business card from his jacket pocket. I represent one of the country's most reputable horse breeding facilities. I've been following your and Troy's success, and I must say I'm very impressed." Angelina took the business card, her expression cautious. "Thank you. We've worked very hard to get to where we are today," she said. "That is obvious," Brown replied with a calculated smile. "That's also why I'm here. My client is very interested in Troy and is willing to offer you a sum that far exceeds any awards you've ever won." Angelina's heart tightened. This offer, although wrapped in professionalism, was no different from the one she had previously declined. Her hand rested on Troy's neck as if seeking support. "He's not for sale," she stated firmly, her gaze unwavering, leaving no room for persuasion. Brown seemed unshaken. "I understand your attachment," he said, his tone patient, as if he were used to negotiating. "But I suggest you think carefully about what that money could bring. You could buy a horse with a perfect pedigree, a horse that could help you reach the pinnacle of this sport." Angelina stepped forward, standing between Brown and Troy, as if to protect her companion from those calculating words. "Mr. Brown," she said, her gaze resolute, "I don't think you understand what Troy means to me. He's not just a horse to compete with. He's a friend, a partner. We've been through everything together. No amount of money can replace that." Brown paused for a moment, looking at her with an unreadable expression, then shrugged. His voice lowered, tinged with sarcasm. "That's a pity. But let me be blunt. In this world, emotions won't get you far. To achieve greatness, sacrifices must be made, and one day you'll have to decide if you're willing to pay the price of saying goodbye." With that, Brown turned and left. Angelina watched his car fade into the distance, a mixture of anger and determination rising within her. That night, while cleaning the stables, she recounted the encounter with Brown to Colin. He listened quietly, leaning on the shovel as usual. "People like that always show up when they see something shining," Colin said, his voice calm but firm. "But the real question is, Angelina, why did you choose this path? If you're chasing glory, one day they may make you waver. But if you want something bigger, no offer will change your mind." Angelina pondered Colin's words as her gaze turned to Troy, resting peacefully in the stable. Memories flooded back, the tough days when the world seemed to turn its back on Troy, and she stood by his side through it all. "I'm not here for the trophies, Colin," she said with conviction. "I'm here to prove that courage isn't about how others perceive you, but what you can truly achieve. Troy deserves to shine, not for them, but for him." Colin smiled proudly and said, "Keep going, girl. But remember, the higher you climb, the harder they'll try to pull you down." The competition day finally arrived. The atmosphere at the venue was filled with excitement and anticipation. Angelina, with Troy by her side, took a deep breath, her eyes gleaming with confidence. Colin placed a hand on her shoulder, whispering, "Just do what you've practiced. Troy believes in you, and you need to believe in yourself." She smiled, looking at Troy one more time before stepping into the arena, ready for the challenge ahead. Despite the surrounding noise, he stood there, calm and cautious, as if he understood the importance of the moment. "We're ready, old man. No matter what happens, we'll face it together." The competition was divided into two phases, the first with average high jumps, and the second, a technical round full of challenges. Only the best would move forward, and Angelina knew she needed to be perfect. When her number was called, whispers spread throughout the stands. Some people had heard of Angelina and Troy, but many doubted that a horse once rejected from an auction could compete with horses bred specifically for the sport. Angelina, calm and collected, led Troy into the arena. The murmurs faded as they took their places at the starting line. She whispered encouragement, "We can do this, boy. This is our moment." The horn sounded, and Troy surged forward with a smooth gallop. The first jump was a challenging triple bar, but Troy cleared it effortlessly, earning a smattering of applause. One obstacle after another was conquered as Angelina and Troy demonstrated the perfect blend of skill and determination. When they crossed the finish line without a single fault, the stands erupted in cheers. Number 47, Angelina Jolie and Troy qualify for round 2 with an outstanding time, the announcer called out. Angelina bent down, rubbed Troy's head and smiled. We did it. In the resting area, eyes from the other competitors were fixed on them, some full of admiration, others still skeptical. A few came over to congratulate them, while others stood at a distance maintaining their doubtful gaze. Luke, a young rider who had met Angelina earlier, walked over. I knew you had something special, but this performance is unbelievable. Angelina modestly replied, Thanks, Luke, but it's Troy who deserves the recognition. The second round proved far more difficult, with sharp turns, complex combinations, and towering obstacles. Angelina kept a close watch on her competitors, each one showcasing formidable skills. When it was her turn, every eye from the judges, the audience, and her opponents was focused on her. The pressure was palpable, but Angelina focused on the most important thing, her bond with Troy. As they reached the third obstacle, a winding combination, Troy hesitated slightly, but with Angelina's firm guidance, he quickly regained his rhythm and cleared it flawlessly. Angelina's heart raced as they approached the final jump, a massive double bar that even the most seasoned riders feared. Troy surged forward, leaped into the air, and landed safely without touching a single rail. The stands erupted in thunderous applause. Angelina leaned down, whispering her thanks to Troy as the announcer revealed their time, placing them second overall in the competition. At the awards ceremony, Angelina and Troy proudly received the silver medal. Though it wasn't gold for Angelina, the achievement meant more than any trophy. Colin beamed with pride, while Luke stood among the crowd, clapping enthusiastically. Angelina's gaze swept over the familiar faces, pausing at James and Brown. Their expressions mixed with awe and jealousy. Holding the medal in her hand, Angelina softly said, "This is just the beginning, Troy. We're going even further." That night, back at the farm, Angelina and Colin celebrated quietly. For Angelina, success was not measured by medals, but by the unbreakable bond between her and Troy, a bond that no award could compare to. Months after winning the national championship, Angelina and Troy had become prominent names in the world of horse racing. Their story spread widely, becoming a powerful source of inspiration, especially for those who believed in second chances. However, with fame came new pressures that threatened to challenge everything Angelina and Troy had worked so hard to build. One night, as she looked at Troy peacefully resting under the starry sky, Colin reminded Angelina that Troy had not only changed her life, but the lives of many others. The horse once rejected was now a symbol of hope. Angelina whispered, "I don't know if I saved him or if it was the other way around." Colin chuckled softly. Maybe it was both. A few years later, as Angelina and Troy stood together in the quiet stables, reflecting on their incredible journey, they realized just how far they had come. The challenges they had faced over the years were not just confined to the competitions and the arena. Life itself had tested them in ways they never expected. Yet through it all, their bond had only grown stronger. From the first hesitant steps they took together to the countless hours of training, they had persevered. Now, standing at the peak of their success, the admiration of others was something they had grown accustomed to. People often marveled at the duo's unbreakable connection and unwavering determination. Compliments poured in from all corners. Praise for their discipline, their partnership, and their incredible accomplishments. But it was the quiet moments, those away from the crowds, that truly defined their relationship. There were times of doubt, moments where failure seemed inevitable, yet neither of them ever gave up. Troy, the horse once rejected and overlooked, had now become a symbol of resilience. He was living proof that greatness could come from the most unexpected places, and that the road to success wasn't always smooth, but was worth every step. And for Angelina, that was the most profound lesson. Dreams were worth chasing no matter how hard the journey. As Angelina gazed into Troy's eyes, she felt the weight of their shared history. She thought back to the days when everything seemed uncertain, when trust had to be built from the ground up. They weren't just a rider and a horse. They were a partnership. Two souls intertwined by their journey, each learning and growing together. That evening, under the vast expanse of the starry sky, with the cool breeze whispering through the trees, Angelina placed a gentle hand on Troy's shoulder. "Thank you, Troy," she whispered. "You changed my life." In that moment, she knew that the greatest gift was not the medals, the trophies, or the recognition. They were the love and trust that had blossomed between them, a bond that would never fade. Thank you for following the inspiring story of Angelina and Troy, a journey of overcoming hardships, proving that with persistence and mutual trust, we can conquer any challenge. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to hit like and share it to spread the inspiration to others. Leave your thoughts in the comments and share stories that motivate you, because we can always learn and support each other on the growth path. Be sure to follow so you don't miss the next stories.